Right. So before we get into this, I think I'll just share a little story of how I got to know David. Uh, I know you also don't know this story from my point of view. So what happened is I was just scrolling through social media, scrolling through websites when I was looking for jobs last year. Then I came across Xteam. So when I clicked on apply, there was this form that was requesting information like a project you're working on and some other information there. So when I clicked on send or submit, I don't remember the name of the button, but after finishing the whole process, for some reason my mind told me you're in.
In Xteam. Ah.
For some reason my mind thought it was like you're in now. Just wait for the guys to communicate and all that. So my crazy self just went straight to LinkedIn and updated it.
Boom.
Boom. And then I think it was a few hours later, David messaged me on LinkedIn something along the lines, "You're not on Xteam, right?" Something along the lines. Yeah.
It probably came up because when you hit the button, it probably came up, because it would come into me as part of the recruitment team, and
Yeah.
then I'm looking at you maybe if, to match to a role, and then I probably looked at your LinkedIn, which is what I would normally do, and then it probably said you work at Xteam. So I'm like, does this person already work at Xteam? Do I? How is this person applying for a job and is already here? So yeah, probably. I didn't
Yeah.
I didn't remember that, but sounds funny.
Yeah, it's actually funny when I think of it, but the message was not funny when I got it. Yeah.
It was probably more confusion at my end.
I was also very, very confused because I thought that form meant that everything was done because after the form there was no communication of whether you'll get a message or not. It was just submit and then yeah. Anyway, just for the audience and anyone who'll be watching this, maybe you can do a small introduction of who you are and what you do with Crashing Digital.
Sure. So obviously you know my name, David Roberts. I have been a software developer, or in the software development industry, I should say, since 2000, so over 20 years. Obviously, I've built my way up in that time from junior developer through to senior and team leadership roles, that sort of thing. And then I kind of had a bit of a career change. I was starting to help developers. I was always quite good at landing jobs. I was good at getting interviews. I was good in the interviews. Maybe that was just a natural thing. I don't know, but I did well at that. And then I started helping other developers to do that. And then that's kind of how I arrived at Xteam, and there I ran and built a recruitment team. This was my first journey into recruitment, and then since then I've run the recruitment team for Xteam and a couple of their competitors. So I've interviewed thousands of software developers in my time, both as someone building a team for my own for the companies I worked for, and then via Xteam and subsequent agencies building teams for their clients across the world. So interviewing and hiring remote developers for mainly US companies, but companies across the world, hiring developers all over the world, pretty much every time zone. And then Crushing Digital is me kind of stepping back to what I was originally starting to do, which was helping developers to get the jobs. So what I've learned in my time in development, and then by becoming a recruiter, I realized certain things like the best developer rarely gets the job. It's the developer that sells themselves the best. And I could see the errors that I'd made along the way about getting jobs. And then I saw the errors that people who were applying to the jobs coming into me, I saw the same mistakes every time. And that's what I'm doing with Crushing Digital, is to say, I can help you to stand out in tech. It's not teaching people to code as such. It's more showing them how technical recruitment really works. And if you can be more targeted, you can land more interviews and you can get better jobs, get the job you deserve, really. So it's kind of me kind of giving back after spending time in recruitment, going back to helping the developers rather than helping the clients as I used to, doing the recruitment side of it. Now I want to show the developers how to get in, how to get selected by recruiters, and how to get more interviews and jobs. So this is really interesting, actually. So when I would put out a job as a recruiter, I would often get hundreds, if not thousands, of applicants to any particular role. And I would then be filtering that down to who I should interview, who I've got time to interview, because these agencies that I worked for had competitors, who were vying for that position as well. They want to place their developer and get paid. We want to place our developer and get paid. So it's a speed game. I'd like to spend my time finding the best developer. But inevitably, I've got to find the best developer I can in the time window that I've got, which is very short, a few days usually. And therefore, you're looking at all these profiles and trying to work out who's the most worthy in terms of, I don't want to make a mistake and interview somebody, because that takes a long period of time. It takes an hour, say, to interview someone. And I can't interview the hundreds or thousands that apply. So I'm trying to hedge my bets. Who's the best person to interview? And this is where, as I said at the start, the best developers rarely get the job. And that's because they don't present themselves the best. And I'd often be speaking to developers, or mainly, or getting emails where they'd say, please, please, please give me an opportunity, give me the interview, give me the chance, and you'll see I'm great. And I say, that's great, but I've got 500 people behind you who are all saying the same thing, but none of you look any different in terms of, you're not presenting anything that makes me think this person's worth more of my time. So what we see with people coming through boot camps, what we see with people coming out of university, what we see with even senior developers, because the agencies I worked for were very much about senior developers, is they're all so bad at presenting themselves. You all look the same on paper. So who do you decide who to interview? And that's really difficult. You're looking for these odd signs. So therefore, the ones that do something that makes me think, oh, that looks pretty good, I'll interview them. They might not be the best developer, but I'm going to choose them because it's a better bet than just the random person. So the recruiters are saying, and the employers are saying, we can't find people, because finding good developers in the hundreds or thousands that apply is hard. Not that they're not great developers. I think the majority of the time we miss out on the best developers, but we're missing out because they didn't show me, the recruiter with no time, anything that was worth exploring further. So in fact, I did a video about this today, saying maybe 1,000 people might apply, and I've got 3, 4, 5 days to present somebody. I'm not going to interview 1,000 people. I'm going to interview 10 people, maybe 15 at most. Who do I pick? So I pick the ones that look the most appropriate, who've given me enough evidence that they're good at this job. I'm pretty sure that the best developers are in the other 985 candidates, but I haven't got time to have an email exchange or have an interview with each one of them to find that out. So this is what I'm trying to do with Crushing Digital, is to say, if you learn about technical recruitment and learn to present the things that I want to see as a recruiter, you'll have far more chance of getting the job, or getting an interview at least, so that then you can prove yourself. So I think developers are saying, I'm applying and I'm really good, and the recruiter saying, I don't see it. And that's where the two don't match up. And there's a gap in that market to try and find the best developers. So as software developers, and this is the interesting thing about my experience, so I've been a developer for 20 years and then done recruitment, so I've seen both sides. Now I know as a developer, once you learn one language, it's much easier to learn the next one, or you can change tech stack. Certainly, in today's market, people moving within, say, a JavaScript stack, they're moving from Angular to React or to Vue. You realize that's quite an easy transition if you're a good enough JavaScript developer. But does a recruiter know that? Most recruiters are not technical. And then also, do they have time to work out and establish that you are a good JavaScript developer? So it's understanding that when I arrive at your LinkedIn profile, which is usually where I start, I'm going to think, okay, I'm a recruiter. I'm looking for this example, a React developer. Are you a React developer? And it's, how quickly can I establish that you are a React developer? You have experience with that. So telltale signs, the headline. It's common for software developers to just put software developer or front-end developer, programmer, coder. You get all kinds of headlines. But does that tell me, the recruiter, that you're the right type of candidate? You could be a software developer, but you don't do JavaScript or even React. You could be full stack, but which way do you lean? So telling me straight away in that headline that this is what you do, and then in your about section telling me this is the sort of job you want, and then can I see it through your experiences, it's giving me the confidence that you're worth more of my time. So lots of software developers don't want to narrow themselves too much and they leave it open. But what happens then, if you've got lots of different technologies and I say, oh, they might be really good, they've got a wide range of skills, and I get you into an interview and you say, oh, I know I can do React, but I've moved over to Angular and I'm more about backend now, I really prefer Python. I'm thinking, oh, I wish I hadn't wasted my time on this interview because this is a race. So making it very clear that what you want, what sort of jobs you want me to talk to you about, means I'm more confident to offer you a place for that interview. And this is where developers don't make it very clear. And as I'm going through the 1,000 applicants, I'm looking for who makes it obvious to me that this is the job they want. They're a good match. In which case, I always say it's like Tinder, but for jobs. And I look at each profile and I give it 10 to 15 seconds. No, 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 yes. No, 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 yes. And then I'll interview the ones that are in the yes pile. And it means I can get down to a manageable number very quickly. Now, if they all fail, if they all look bad, or I realise that the client wants something different, I can go back to the stack and start looking at fresh again. But if you're not in that first yes pile to get that first interview, that's where all these crazy things happen, where people go, the recruiter's gone quiet they have, it's because they're interviewing all the other candidates that looked like a better match on paper than you. That's it. So for me personally, there's my personal thoughts on this, and then there's the real world almost. So I always liked to find the gem of a developer. That so some of the best developers I've hired have been graduates who, they've been coding since they were 9 years old. They just live and breathe it, but they don't have the experience. So I don't think your years of professional experience necessarily dictates how good you are as a developer. It's about you giving yourself the experience and working on things. And this is where I tell developers without the experience, it's about your proactivity. It's about, lots of developers come to me and go, please, please, please give me the job. I'll learn quickly. And I'm like, well, why don't you go and learn quickly and then come back? And when I'm looking at what you're doing, lots of people do a boot camp and they've got a certificate. They do a university course, they've got a certificate. That's just one piece of paper, one post that says, look, I did this. Whereas someone who shows me their side project and a post every day and it's drip feeding this quality, I can see that you're giving yourself the experiences. So if I can't see the experience, I look for the proactivity. And this is the same whether you're brand new to the industry or the same if you're trying to transition between tech stacks. Show me that you're making inroads to getting there yourself, and now I want to support that journey. Now, when I said I'm different to most, because I'm from a developer background, I guess, but often it doesn't really matter what I believe, it matters what I can sell. And so the client sometimes is not as forgiving or understanding about your technical background. So they might just say to me, no, unless I can see so many years of experience, it's a no. Sometimes I just can't get around that. But other times I might say, I get the opportunity to say, here's someone with the experience and they look good. This person is maybe missing the mark in terms of you wanted 5 years of experience. This person's got 3, but I'd pick this person and here's why. But I need to have something, some way of convincing them, even though convincing is a terrible position to be in. But you need to have some evidence that says, I can do this. I'm worth looking at. But without it, that just please give me an opportunity. I can't sell that. No one's willing to listen to me. So unless you've got something to show for it, it's a really difficult game. So this is a great question. I think when I see people coming through boot camps is the usual example that I would give. So people in boot camps, they work on a portfolio website and they put a lot of work into this. And then, their resume. Senior developers tend to write a blog and they'll put it on places like Hashnode, or they're on Medium sometimes, or the posting to like Dev2 and the technical places. And this is where I often tell people, this is about understanding your customer. And if you're a software developer looking for a job, who is your customer? Your customer is recruiters and employers. And so you posting all of your evidence, all of your technical ability in the places where all the software developers hang out is not targeting your customer. It's targeting your peers. You want that credit from them to say they think I'm good. Who cares? No, so LinkedIn is one of those platforms where I don't think people tend to hang out on LinkedIn because it's like, a cool place to be. But this is a place for you to hang out because this is where recruiters hang out. So you can blog wherever you like. But what I tell people is, if you're blogging somewhere else, post it also on LinkedIn. Ideally, I would be putting most of your things on LinkedIn, because as a recruiter, I don't tend to look at your resume because everyone's resume looks different. So if you try and look through 100 resumes and they all look different, after a while your brain hurts and it's too much. So LinkedIn always looks the same. So we always start with LinkedIn, which is probably how I found you when we talked about this at the start. So I look straight at LinkedIn. It's always in the same format. And then only when I see something of value or a promising profile, like you match the role that I'm looking for, will I then look for your portfolio website or more supporting evidence, maybe your GitHub account, things like that. But I'm not going there unless you show me enough evidence. So lots of the next level that people get to is maybe linking up their portfolio from LinkedIn, which is great. You should do that, in the contact information. But am I going to go up and click on contact information, find your website, and then click on it? It's important to start thinking about the UX of this. How many clicks does it take for me to find that evidence? So you can make it easy by making it a post, make it a featured post on LinkedIn that says, hey, this is my portfolio website, drag me over there. That's next level. If you want to go even higher again, how can you drag all that evidence and put it right in front of the recruiter? So the number of clicks required is almost none. It's there on LinkedIn. It's there on so instead of just linking from a featured post to your portfolio website, can you make posts every day telling me how you're building it, what decisions were made in doing that? And then I don't have to go anywhere to see your value. It's right in front of me on LinkedIn. I can make my decision with minimal effort. You're making it fast for me. You're making it easier for the customer. So then I'll start, whenever I look at people from boot camps, I'll get to their portfolio website and realize, wow, all your evidence is here. All your evidence is in this portfolio because they've got lots of projects that they've done throughout their boot camp or throughout their course or throughout their learning while they're doing it. Why haven't you put all that evidence on LinkedIn where the recruiter's looking at you? Now, instead of just saying, hey, I built this, I built this, I built this, which is one post per time, what if you made a post, a short post with a screenshot and a code snippet about every decision you made in the journey of building that one project? You'd probably have 200 posts for that one project, and you've got 5 projects. Now you've got 1,000 posts that are 1,000 pieces of evidence that you live and breathe this technology. That makes you vastly different to every other developer that's out there. Even though you've all done the same amount of work, you've all made the same decisions, all built the same kind, everyone's built a Netflix clone and a weather app and all those sorts of things, but you've shown it to somebody in terms of, here's all of the effort and passion that went into making those things. That looks like a proactive developer. I give that person an interview. Mhm. Yes. And an example I might give is, often I would have non-technical or less technical recruiters working with me, and I would send them out looking for a developer for a particular role. Now, I'm giving a very contrived example here, but one example is, I'd say, look, we're after a Python developer, and they would come back and say, here's a Python developer. And I'd look at them and go, this is a DevOps candidate. But they would tell me, so I ask, why did you present this person? And it's a source of embarrassment, I guess, because they're like, oh, I've got it wrong. No one wants to get it wrong in their job. But they saw Python all the way through that profile. And I'm saying, yes, but a DevOps person uses Python, but in a very different way. You know, you can use Python for web development. You can use Python for doing business information and data analytics and things like artificial intelligence and machine learning. You can use Python for a million things. I'm after them for this web development side of things. So they've presented the wrong candidate. So, what you can do then is, if you present yourself and say, I use these technologies, all they're doing is looking for enough evidence to build confidence, so that when I say, why did you present this candidate? They go, look, you asked for a React developer, and it says React in their headline, it says React in their about section. I can see React all the way through their experiences, and they seem to talk about React on LinkedIn every day. That's enough justification for putting them forward. They feel confident. And whereas on the other side, they'll be looking at your profile going, I can see you've got 5 years of experience and you've got some Python, but I'm not sure if you love Python or you've moved on from Python. I'm not sure if you use it for the right things. And therefore, I'm just not confident enough to spend time in an interview. I'm not confident enough to put you forward to my boss or my client because I might be wrong. You may have lots of experience, you may be the right person, but you didn't make them confident enough. And this is where 99% of developers fail in a job application, because they get filtered out by the recruiter, not because a technical person much later on filtered them out. What I'm trying to help you with is to get past that recruiter, so that you get your chance to explain in an interview how good you really are. Yep. So, I think doing a boot camp, doing an internship, doing anything, let's face it, you're putting in a lot of work. You know that people to do an internship, certainly like an unpaid internship, that's a big undertaking from somebody. For someone to stop their career and do a boot camp, to spend money to go through some of these bigger boot camps, it's quite a commitment. And so it is valuable, but only if you show the value. And this is where I think a lot of people go through that boot camp, and I see this actually every day with the 100 days of code thing that's very popular on Twitter. So I watch people posting every day. Day 45, I did more coding. Day 46, I did a bit more Java. Day 47, and I'm thinking, who is this valuable to? They're doing all the hard work. They're just not selling it. So that boot camp, lots of people tell me, oh, I'll listen to what you're saying and do those things, and I'll start documenting what I'm doing after my boot camp. And then they get to the end of the boot camp and they speak to me and they say, how do I do this? And I go, you should be writing down everything you're learning every day. Don't write one big long post, because that's what people do. I passed the boot camp. Here's my certificate. Was it a good boot camp, a bad boot camp? Did you try hard? Did you learn a lot or not learn a lot? Have you ever done this? In JavaScript, have you ever done had this problem? Well, yes, I did. But now you've got to convince them that you've had this experience. Whereas the alternative is to start on day one. Everything you learn, you tell them. And I say, don't just document the things that go well, document all the things that go wrong and you're stuck on, you don't understand, but you're writing about it and people are starting to join the conversation. Senior developers love to come along and tell you that they know the answer. But now it's kind of like watching a movie. The hero shouldn't win on day one. For us to realize that your boot camp was worthwhile and you have learned, we need to see you suffering and struggling and getting it wrong and making bad decisions, learning, and then you start to win at the end and it gets much better. The hero has to win in the end. Now, when you go and apply for a job, hopefully you've done all this on LinkedIn, so all that evidence goes with you. But when someone says, well, okay, you've been through a boot camp, but have you ever written something to do this? Or have you ever had this problem, whatever the problem might be? And you go, yes, I wrote about it. Here's the post. I did that months ago. It's you can't deny that you've been doing it. And more importantly, as you've been posting about these things and the senior developer comes in and says, I know the answer to this, when they answer it and now they see you fixing it, it's not them that you're talking to, but they work for a company and their boss hires people who also do the things that you're doing. So they're starting to see their posts. Now you're starting to network, not by saying, hey, can I have a friend request with somebody you don't know? Now you're starting to build a network of people who talk about tech together, and you're seen as a proactive developer. And you don't have to be the best developer in the world. You just have to be slightly more attractive on paper than the rest of your peers. So everyone gets to the end of their boot camp and they look the same. If you do it this way, you end up with the same certificate and a load of evidence that goes with you. Otherwise, you've got to then finish your boot camp and then start trying to build evidence for the future. And that's where they go, oh, now I've got to do a side project as well. I've already done 5 projects. Great. Why didn't you document those? And that's where I look at people's portfolio website and go, all that evidence of all those projects you've done, you should be thinking about every decision that went into making those. Write that down. That's your real value. Otherwise, it's just, I promise you I'm good. I promise you I loved my course and I really listened. I'm sure you did, but so did everybody else. You need to prove it. I think it can be a substitute, yes. I think recruiters do go to those things. I don't think they're very successful when they do get there. I think it's the chance of finding the right person at the right time. It's just about generally meeting developers and hoping for a future thing. But this is where your posts and putting yourself out there is far more valuable, because it's not about writing. So people think they're going to write one post, and this is where they put a lot of time and effort into this big long blog post about how something works in tech. So they're explaining state management or something in React, and they think people are going to read it and go, oh, this person's brilliant, let's give them a job. This never happens. It's just absolutely not happening. But so no one's going to read that much anyway. Certainly not a recruiter who doesn't even know what state management is, never mind what React is and the fact that it's JavaScript underneath. They just don't know and they don't care. But they need to know that you live and breathe it so that they can put you forward with confidence. So this is where one post won't cut it. Lots of posts. This person talks about React every day. They must know something, and then they put you forward. So I think people commenting on other people's posts and saying, You know, I always look at someone's activity, and most of the comments are "nice job," "this was great." These are they're a bit of a waste of time for me. I would go and start trying to join technical conversations where someone's saying, "Oh, I'm stuck on this," and help them, or maybe say, "Oh, I've used that, but I tried this." But your post should be done in a similar vein. Don't just talk about your "I built this, it's great. I built this, it's great. I built this, it's great." It should be, I can't get my website to be responsive. I can't get this component to talk to this component. I'm using this package, but I'm having problems. Now other people start coming in going, well, try this package, or, oh, I see what you've done wrong there with this code snippet. Now you're networking in a natural way that's all about that technology. And it won't be the fact that that post gets seen today. It'll be when a recruiter arrives at your profile in 3 months' time. If you did a post a day, they're going to arrive and look at the activity, and it's just a wall of 90 posts about React. How many are they going to read? None. But they're going to see that there are a lot of posts about React. Therefore, I'm more confident. Uh, so
Because I'm sure most of these guys are, I don't know if feel uncomfortable talking to people and all
yeah,
that. How do those guys get to win? Because the guys that are normally loners have a lot of time, and therefore it mostly translates to their skill level. So how do they jump out of that
yeah,
shell?
and this is where I say you don't have to be doing videos and podcasts and things like that. It's more about um, asking. If I ask a senior developer, is this developer? So bring in a candidate. Is this a good developer? You'd be surprised how many times I've brought in a developer with me to an interview, and I ask them at the end, so what do you think? Are they any good? They go, I don't know. It's difficult because it's hard to establish whether that developer's good or not, because how can you find out rather than actually going through code and really looking? But have you got time to go through 10 different candidates' code and have a look? Usually no. So it's how can you show your value? And that's where I tell people, yes, you might be a bit shy about talking on camera, so don't talk. Can you write? And then they go, well, I'm not a great writer. And I think, well, you don't have to be a great writer, but it could. This is where I say people write big, long blog posts. And I say, and the usual excuse is, I don't have time. So I tell developers, if you're spending more than 5 minutes per day on this, you're doing it wrong. I would be putting up. So let's say you can't get your website to be responsive, something very basic and trivial. I would put up a picture of your website looking non-responsive and go, here's a link to the code snippet, or here's a picture of the code snippet as well. I can't get this to be responsive. What am I doing wrong? People start talking about tomorrow. I finally fixed my, and you next screenshot, and it's responsive, and here's what I changed. It's 2 lines, 3 lines, but you're talking about development every day. And this is where I would, if you're really good and you're learning, if you're good enough, you can write and teach other people. Sure. If not, and you're learning something new, if you're really techie and you're learning something new every day, just write about what you learned. Journal for yourself, because no one's going to read it anyway, unless they're really into that subject. But in terms of getting a job, all that you need to do is convince people that you live and breathe this. And the only way you can convince people you live and breathe it is by showing the amount of time you spend in this subject. And one post won't show that you spend a lot of time. Lots of posts will. Definitely. Yes. Yeah. I think recruiters are always going to be happy to be meeting more developers. That's certainly what they want to do. But the vast majority of software developer profiles, there's an interesting story actually. At one stage, I was thinking we need to find more great developers. So I thought I'm going to have a look at the 10 best developers we have and then try to find some commonality amongst those 10 developer profiles. So I can then say, hey, these are the things that show that a developer is very good on a profile. Teach the team this, and they go away and find more developers like those 10 great developers. After my research into finding the 10 best developers we had, the only thing I could find that connected them all was that they all have terrible profiles. So they were found in spite of terrible profiles, not because of their profile. So if you're going to contact a recruiter, they're always happy to meet new developers. But if you're, hey, I'm a developer, here's my terrible profile, you're not giving them any value. But if you've got a profile that says, hey, I'm a great React developer and I prove it here, it's really easy for you to see. Now they go, oh, when the next React role comes in, I'm keeping you in mind. And where I said at the start, recruitment is a speed game. That's how recruitment actually works, is they say, okay, the chances of you applying for a job and you being assessed for that job and getting that job are very small. What actually happens is you apply for this job, you're a bit late, you miss the cut, but I go, wow, I really like that developer. Put them on a list, favorite React developers, and when the next one comes in, I just immediately email that list saying, you lot were all great. Are you still available? And then the ones that come back and say, yes, I know I've already vetted them. I'm already happy that I'm confident in their skills. But if you just give me a profile that doesn't really look like much, I just go, great, I'll keep you in the database and keep looking at you, but you're not going to go onto my list to remember for that skill set. And that's the way I used to operate is, okay, great React developers, my top 10 list, great Vue developers, my top 10 list, great Python developers. And I always, as soon as a job comes in, email that list. And once I start placing those developers, I then tell the team, hey, go and flood that list again, find me great developers to go back on there. So you do go back and revisit those other profiles, but you know that they sucked in terms of profiles before. You're hoping next time you visit that profile, it looks better. Failing that, you might start interviewing them to go, okay, I'm scratching around now. I'm really trying to find out. You've got a terrible profile, but I'm hoping you're good. But this is when your chances are very small because I'm just picking people at random rather than an educated guess. So unless you make it easy for me, you just fall into the numbers game. And that, like I say, that there are hundreds, if not thousands of applicants to every job. So you want to get yourself out of that general population of people who look bad. The good thing is most people look really bad. So you only have to do a little bit before I go, oh, great, keep one. The interesting thing was for the senior developers that we have, people with 5, 6, 7, 10 years of experience, their profiles were still terrible. And when they applied for a job and I go, I know that's a great developer, I've interviewed them, I'm putting them forward. Pretty much 95% of the time, I would rewrite their CV, their resume personally, because otherwise they won't get the job. Even though they've got great skills, they don't show it enough for me to sell them. And that's what's important. So this is where I say, you need to stand out. People think they need to write the best code in the world to stand out. You don't. 99% of people look exactly the same. If you just put your head up just a little bit and show a little bit of proactivity, your chances of landing more jobs goes up dramatically. And that's what I'm finding with what I'm doing with Crushing Digital. Once I can get people to change their profile, the results are quite dramatic in terms of attention they're getting from recruiters and how many interviews they start getting. My pleasure. Awesome, yeah. Yeah, great. And if anyone wants me to review their profile, I do that for free at crushing.digital. And also, if anyone's got any questions, feel free. At Crushing Digital on most places, or maybe we can share my LinkedIn profile. I'm happy to answer any questions that come up.
Sure, just add all those links in the description section. So click down
Awesome.
below and you'll see it. So thank you. It's been an honor knowing you for let's say it was
Yeah.
an awesome mistake adding my name on adding X-Team to my LinkedIn.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been a great chat. I've really enjoyed it. It's great to see you again.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, you guys continue subscribing, share this video. I'm sure many developers will benefit from this. All you have to do is put your head up, make your LinkedIn as consistent as possible, and also make sure your GitHub is as green as possible. So cheers and see you in the next video.